They've decided Hamilton should follow Leclerc's setup. It sounds technical, strategic, even logical, but beneath the surface, that single sentence, confirmed by Ferrari's deputy team boss Jérôme D'Ambrosio, reveals something far more unsettling. This isn't a setup change, it's a surrender, not by Hamilton, but by the system that was supposed to empower him. Ferrari once again is choosing comfort over leadership, and Hamilton, the most adaptable driver of his generation, is now being asked to adapt to someone else, not just any teammate, Leclerc. The same Leclerc who has spent seasons building his comfort zone inside Maranello. The same Leclerc whose radio silence is interpreted as strategy and whose struggles are rewritten as growth. Now, after months of frustration with the SF25, Hamilton is being nudged, or cornered, into copying a setup not built for him. The message is clear, Ferrari doesn't have answers, so they're borrowing Leclerc's. But when you ask a legend to follow, you're already losing the plot. Because Hamilton didn't come to Ferrari to follow, he came to transform it. It started in Japan. After a frustrating start to the season, Charles Leclerc made a bold shift, adopting a more oversteer-heavy setup. Riskier, more alive on corner entry. It was a setup that demanded more from the driver but offered sharper rotation through the turns, and it worked. From Suzuka onwards, Leclerc found rhythm, 4 podiums in 8 races, a steady climb that painted him, temporarily, as the more in-sync Ferrari driver. Inside the garage, the narrative shifted. Suddenly, Leclerc's setup wasn't just his, it was the reference, the benchmark, the blueprint for anyone else trying to make the SF25 work. And that included Lewis Hamilton. At first, he resisted. Hamilton has always been meticulous about his preferences. He doesn't chase feel, he engineers it. But as the season dragged on, the pressure mounted. No podiums, no breakthrough, just silence and sliding tires. By the time the circus reached Spielberg, something had changed. Hamilton admitted it himself. He was now leaning into Leclerc's setup philosophy. Not because it suited him, but because Ferrari didn't seem to have another answer. The transformation had begun, quietly, but not on Hamilton's terms. At the Austrian Grand Prix, Hamilton said the quiet part out loud. He was following Leclerc's setup, a deliberate migration, a conscious alignment with the direction that had delivered results for someone else. The consequences were immediate. Yes, the pace was better. Hamilton crossed the line in 4th, his best result in months, but behind the scenes, there was a price. Increased tire wear, a more nervous car under braking, and above all, a style of driving that didn't match the man behind the wheel. Because this setup wasn't designed for Hamilton's rhythm, it was sculpted around Leclerc's reflexes, sharp, reactive, emotionally charged. Hamilton, by contrast, builds his race like a chess match, calm, precise, layered with intent. So when Hamilton adopts Leclerc's settings, it's not just a technical shift, it's a philosophical contradiction. And yet, Ferrari is treating it like a solution, as if mimicking Leclerc's formula will unlock Hamilton's performance. But imitation has never been Hamilton's method. He doesn't mirror, he engineers. And if Ferrari's answer to his struggles is simply drive like Charles, then someone's missing the point or protecting the status quo. When asked if Hamilton would continue down this path, Jérôme D'Ambrosio didn't hesitate. "I'd say at the moment, definitely," he said. Just like that, it was official, not a trial, not a compromise, a direction, locked in. The deputy team boss framed it as logic. The car responds best with a certain balance, and Leclerc's setup leans that way. But the subtext wasn't hard to read. Ferrari has chosen a baseline, and that baseline comes from one garage, not the one with 7 world titles hanging over it. Instead of tailoring the SF25 to Hamilton's legendary input, they are asking him to conform, to play catch-up with someone who has never won a championship, to erase his instincts and trace someone else's lines. It's not sabotage, it's something subtler, and perhaps more dangerous, a passive resistance to change. Because adapting to a new driver is one thing, refusing to meet him halfway is another. Hamilton didn't just bring experience, he brought transformation, and yet, Ferrari seems more comfortable adjusting him than adjusting for him. The real question now isn't technical, it's political. Who really sets the course inside this team? This setup decision does more than influence tire wear or corner entry, it defines hierarchy. Because in Formula 1, the driver whose feedback sets the car's direction is not just faster, he's more powerful. His word becomes gospel, his instincts become data, and Ferrari just confirmed publicly that Leclerc's preferences now shape the SF25. That's not a technical adjustment, that's a shift in command. It's subtle. There's no press release declaring Charles the number 1. But in the language of setup sheets and post-session briefings, the meaning is clear. Hamilton is no longer the reference, he is the follower. And that creates a paradox. Because Ferrari hired a legend to lead, to elevate, to reset their culture of defeat, but halfway through the season, they've positioned him behind a driver who has never completed a championship campaign without emotional implosions. The setup change isn't just about finding performance, it's about choosing who gets to define Ferrari's identity. And right now, they've chosen comfort over courage, stability over transformation, Leclerc over Hamilton. For most drivers, being told to follow a teammate's setup is standard procedure. For Hamilton, it's a warning sign. This is a driver who spent over a decade at Mercedes building not just cars, but systems, cultures. He wasn't just quick on track, he was the architect behind the dominance. Now, at Ferrari, that identity is being diluted. They are not asking for his blueprint, they are offering him someone else's. It's not about ego, it's about alignment. Hamilton doesn't just want a fast car, he wants one he understands, one that obeys the subtle language of balance he's mastered over years. But Ferrari is telling him, adapt faster, copy more, question less. It's the opposite of why he came, and it cuts deeper than strategy disagreements or race day fumbles. This strikes at Hamilton's core strength, his ability to shape a team around a long-term vision. Instead, he's being treated like a late arrival on someone else's project. This isn't about handling traits or tire temps, it's about trust. And what happens when you ask a champion to chase shadows instead of giving him the tools to lead? Right now, Ferrari frames this as progress. Hamilton is closer to Leclerc's data, the team has a unified setup direction, results will follow. But what happens when they don't? What if Hamilton continues to struggle? Not because he failed to adapt, but because the adaptation itself was a mismatch? Because driving someone else's car is not the same as driving your own? Then the narrative will twist. The same voices who applauded the alignment will ask questions. Why didn't it work for Lewis? Is he too rigid? Is he too old? Has he lost the edge? And the blame will fall, not on the setup, but on the man who trusted the system. That's the trap. Because when a team fails to build for a driver like Hamilton, then blames him for not fitting, it's not misfortune, it's institutional cowardice. In Hungary, at Zandvoort, at Monza, circuits that expose both balance and adaptability, we will see if Ferrari's solution holds, or if this is just another layer of insulation around a team too afraid to fully hand over the reins to a champion who didn't come to follow, but to redefine everything. Ferrari didn't announce a leadership change, but they made one. By confirming that Hamilton will continue using Leclerc's setup, they've drawn a line in the garage floor. One side shaped by past comfort, the other by potential transformation. And right now, Hamilton stands alone on the wrong side of that line. But here's the twist. Lewis isn't panicking. He isn't begging for adaptation. He's watching, recording, learning how this team reacts to pressure and how far it's willing to go to protect its own reflection, even at the cost of progress. The next races won't just test tire management or setup stability. They'll test whether Ferrari is ready to let Hamilton lead or if it's more comfortable asking him to follow a shadow. Because make no mistake, this isn't about performance anymore. It's about power. And if Ferrari keeps silencing the architect they hired to build, they'll be remembered as the team that couldn't get out of its own way. If you believe Hamilton deserves more than a borrowed setup, drop a comment, #StandWithLewis, and if you're ready to follow this power shift to its breaking point, subscribe. The next race might not change everything, but it will reveal who's willing to.